Rotarians, prospective members, and guests. My name is Doug Bolton. Very honored to be the president of Club 17, leading you. It's phenomenal to be starting off our new Rotary year talking about something that I know every single person in here has some interest in. Whether it's our kids playing sports, the colleges that we root for, or now in Cincinnati, having for the first time ever 3 professional sports teams that are the envy of the world. We are going to be dazzled by a nationally acclaimed sports attorney, so get your questions ready. We're going to fire them at him after he makes a presentation about his work today, as well as his past work with the NCAA. It's going to be a great program, but first, let's kick it off as we should in honor of our country, the national anthem led by Stephanie Shear and Janet Metzler.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. Now, Tony Autry, Director, leading us in the 4-way test and invocation.
Thank you so much, President Doug. Welcome to the Phoenix. May we bow our heads in prayer. Creator and sustainer of all that is or will ever be, accept our thanks for this day and all its blessings. We ask that you guide us and direct our club, its leaders, and our actions. Grant that each of us may feel our responsibility to Rotary, to our community, to our country, and indeed to all countries and peoples. Bless our fellowship today, and bless this food to nourishment of our bodies in your service. Amen.
Amen.
Now for the 4-way test. Is it
Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you very much.
You may be seated, but let's give our undivided attention to one of the most important parts of the program, where we welcome our guests and visitors. And don't you love this title? Our Sergeant at Arms, Janet Metzler.
Thank you. We'd like to welcome our guests and prospective members. Thank you so much for joining us here at our Rotary Club. We hope you feel welcome and that you make new friends. To start with, please, when I say your name, stand so everyone can see who you are and give you an applause. Okay. Rob Wheel, son to Melody Wheel. There he is. Trevor Cabane from Alta ITS. Guest of Michael Sheridan. Thank you. Hipple with Osborne Coinage, guest of Steve King. And Patrick was with us for changing of the guard, so we hope he becomes a regular here. Emily Rose with Constellation Wealth Advisors, guest of Barb Clem and Michael Sheridan, family of our speaker. Please stand. And thanks to the parents for raising this fine young man. Laura and Maddie Welke from Winton Woods High School. Please stand for a minute. Maddie is going to be representing our club in Ecuador starting in late August, early September. She's a youth exchange student from Winton Woods High School and speaks great Spanish already. So we'll be looking forward to hearing her report of her experience when she comes back. But remember her in your thoughts and prayers as she's away from us and her family. We also have Drew Jackson. Please stand. She is also from Winton Woods High School. She's the Community Engagement Officer. And just so you know, as part of Youth Exchange, we both send a student out who we fondly call outbounds, and then we welcome a student in who are inbounds. And we have a student, Komori, from Japan, who will be coming probably by August 10th, and we're still looking for the first host family. Pete, you know what that feels like? Thank you. Thank you.
There's no room on my couch.
Yeah. No room at your house. Well, so we're going to be relying on Drew and all of you. If you know of any families in the Winton Woods School District who would welcome a student for just 3 months, we're looking for 3 families, and we have a second host family, but not a first. And it's critical that we give a good, strong Cincinnati welcome to this girl from Japan who is 16 going on 17, but she plays trombone. She has her heart set on becoming an air traffic controller, a goal that she found for herself when she was 5. And she's excited about coming, so we want to welcome her, and thank you so much.
As you all know, Paul Harris and his fellow Chicagoans were businessmen who founded the Rotary Club wanting to get together to do service, but they were businessmen, so it was important, and it's very appropriate that we have a meeting sponsor who we invite to come up and talk about their business. Our meeting sponsor today is Brian Bielauer with Decal Infractions. Brian?
Truly is a happy day when I get to speak with the Rotary Club. I would like to take 1 second and give a plug to the meeting sponsorship committee. There is no better investment of any company's resources than to put a few dollars towards our club, spend a few minutes talking to you wonderful people about what our companies do. So if you haven't yet, please sign up. It is a great way to meet our guests. Of course, we visit with each other while we do, so make sure you get on the list. It's going to fill up quick. Decal Impressions, my passion, my joy, my love, the bane of my existence. That was in my notes. I'd really just quickly like to say, you see our work everywhere. Thankfully, most of it's good. But really, you're going to see something spectacular at the end of this week. Our crew will be out at Memorial Hall starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we'll be removing the graphics we installed a couple weeks ago for a promotion and completely changing out the front of the building over the course of Sunday. Black Tech Week, all right. So it's going to be an amazing design concept, and we're really excited to be a part of it. So if you're out and about, you're involved in the community, stop by, watch some amazing professionals put some really, really hard work into getting something turned over in about 6 or 7 hours. And get out and support the community. You see our work on Fountain Square, Washington Park, Ziegler Park, and all over the tri-state area. And we have national reach through our internet portals, and we work for franchises all across the nation, and we're always looking for more. If I can be of any service, let me know. I'm Brian Bielhauer, Decal Impressions. Thank you.
It was a total surprise at the changing of the guard when the Rotary chorus decided to choose Paul Simon's 50 Ways to Leave a Lover as my song. So I wasn't quite sure how to think about that, because me and my lover have been together for 37 years. So anyway, it was well designed, well written by Janet Metzelaar about 50 ways to grow Rotary. So I'm now pleased to introduce the person who's going to help us implement those 50 ways to grow Rotary, our membership director, Michael Sheridan.
Thank you, President Doug. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
There we go, good. Okay, so reading through the program today and the agenda, I would like to give a shout out to Sarah for giving me 13 minutes to talk about membership to help. So get comfortable. That's the 10 price. It's the 3 that I prepared for. Okay, well, there goes the tap dance number. Okay, so as President Doug mentioned, 2 weeks ago at the changing of the guard, Janet Metzelaar, there's Janet walking around now. Say hi to Janet, everybody. Hi, Janet. She rewrote the song to 50 Ways to Love Your Liver. Or no, Hate Your Lover. And the 50 Ways to Grow Rotary. So I had a pretty big smile on my face at that time because I had already sent in that slide. So hearing the wonderful job that our chorus did and surprising everyone with it was like, oh, well, this looks like we planned it. We didn't, but it looks like it. So what we're going to do, we're going to grow Rotary over the next year, and we're going to do it through different ways. Imagination, inspiration, innovation, and teamwork. And I'm going to talk a little bit about each one because I still have another 12 minutes to go in my talk. They're giving me the no. Okay. So, imagination, things like Janet rewriting the lyrics to the song and having fun, reimagining things. We're going to do a little bit of that next year. Inspiration. I'm drawing inspiration from Doug and Sarah and Dan Long and just a whole bunch of folks on how we can grow our club a little bit by honoring our traditional ways of doing things and adding some new wrinkles to it. And that gets into innovation. One of the things that I've been doing is going out to some networking events and meeting people, qualifying them, and then inviting them to lunch. So today, we have a few people here who that has worked from. And we're here because of that effort. So Emil, would you stand up as a new member? Also with us is Trevor Cobain, who has applied and went through classification just now. So I met Trevor at our coffee event in Newtown when a prospective member brought Trevor. So the prospective member's out working for us. He hasn't joined yet, Trevor has. And Trevor is prospecting for us because I had a conversation earlier this week with someone that Trevor said, hey, you need to talk to Michael about Rotary. And that gentleman will be joining us next week because he used to work with Bob Coughlin at Paycor. So just funny how this works. I got networking upon networking going on. And lastly, we have Chris Warner. Chris, are you here? Chris may have had to leave because of other commitments today, but Chris joined us for classification as well. And Chris came to us through an innovative approach that our YP group put together by using Eventbrite to publicize things like the happy hour. It's one of those things, the minute I heard it, it was like, ah, damn, I wish I had thought of that. So it's such a good idea. If you look at the photographs we had going before of our last happy hour at Sam Adams Brewery, you see a lot of people you don't know. That's because the majority of the crowd there was from the Eventbrite invitation that the YP group set up. Great job by them. Innovation, we're going to be looking at doing some things a little bit differently on how we prospect for marketing. My membership co-chair, Lisa Lickard is here. Lisa, please stand. Be recognized. Lisa is going to be working on how we prospect for prospective members, specifically through LinkedIn. There's a way to do it through category business classifications, and we're going to be using that tool. And also our social media group, chaired by our very own Stephanie Sheard. Stephanie, are you here? Someone stand up. And Stephanie's putting together some social media work for us that we'll be using for prospective members as well. And that leads into the teamwork part of it. That's where you come in. We're all part of one big team. You can't do this alone. You know, Dan Long did a great job last year, brought in 42 members. That's excellent. But we need to do some other things to that. One of them will be calling former members who left us over the last couple years. Mike Lavallee and Nessa McGuire have volunteered to lead that project for me. And then, you know, we're just going to be looking for different ways to reach out and find people. So if I do a lot of networking events, there are other events. If you have an event you think I should be going to, let me know, okay? And we'll go check it out, and we'll try to grow Rotary together. And our goal for this year, drum roll please. Ah, we did it, okay, drum roll. Target number is 55 new members next year. So, we can't do it alone. It's a teamwork. So go out, talk to people, qualify them. Don't just give away lunches to be giving away lunches. Okay? You know, make sure that they're interested in giving back to the community, learning new leadership skills by leading others, and networking to grow their business a little bit through service above self. So we'll be giving more talks on this as we go throughout the year, but we're going to need everybody's help. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Michael. Quickly, we have a bunch of announcements. I'm going to run through these, but one of the most important announcements is our birthdays this week. And celebrating a birthday who's with us today, July 15th, Peter Baden. Split the pot. Your ticket is worth $35 to you. 25% is to you, 25% to the club, to the accumulating pot, and then 50% goes to our membership development efforts supporting Michael. Michael can actually choose the ticket. The winning number is 3983999. And drawing for $420. Wait, Bart? No.
For a dime.
So close. So coming up, a couple of events. Our next Rotary breakfast is July 25th. At the Metropolitan Club, 8 a.m. July 25th. Please join us as a way to introduce new members and as well as get together in a different format. Later that evening, we have Rotary Euchre happening at 6:30 p.m. and that's at the home of Camille Scherzinger. So please RSVP to Camille by Thursday, July 20th. Also a reminder, you've already received the email, I believe, but the reservations for next week's meeting are due tomorrow. So make sure that you make those reservations now. Look for that email this afternoon. We are starting a sweet tooth committee. So if you are interested in helping us provide you all, our members, with some sweets after we've enjoyed this great meal from the Phoenix. Let Mary Branstetter know. She would like to gather a group of volunteers. This could be if you're interested in baking for all of us, or if you're interested in buying something for all of us, so that we have some kind of dessert as we wrap up our meal. All right, finally, he really didn't want to do this, but I'm making him do it. Steve King, he was like, no, I'm no longer supposed to be up at the podium, but I want Steve to describe and introduce more fully a great program that he put in place that I'm continuing. Steve?
Thank you, President Doug. That's been pretty good. I got to have my meal today, which was fantastic. It feels really good to be on this side of the gavel. But thank you very much for the quick opportunity. We ran out of time for the changing of the guard. Wanted to play off of something that we did make an innovation and an improvement on. You recall that for our speakers, we gave them each a token of our appreciation, which was a personalized Rotary Club of Cincinnati coin. And on a few occasions, I got a coin in return from a few of our speakers. I compared our coin against the coins I got in return. And I thought, gosh, I wish we could upgrade our Rotary Club of Cincinnati coin. Well, a few months ago, I bumped into an old friend from high school. Patrick Hipple, good to see you. We were at the Village Tavern in Montgomery. I said, what's going on? What have you been doing? He's like, oh, I'm working for Osborne Coinage. What do they do? Well, we make coins and currency, and we've been doing it since 1835. I'm like, do you think you could make me a Rotary Club of Cincinnati coin? And he goes, well, sure. We just, work with the designers and get it together. I was like, could you get it by June 15th? He goes, we'll make it happen. And to play off of the whole King Steve thing, I couldn't help but put a little treasure chest together. And freshly minted from Osborne Coinage is our brand new Rotary Club of Cincinnati coin and an entire year's supply that I wanted to give to Doug.
Who's our speaker is his son-in-law's brother. Jack?
Thank you, President. Today, it's fortunate for all of us to have such a great speaker here, Michael Sheridan. Michael Sheridan comes from Indianapolis and has quite a history in sports law, particularly dealing with NCAA violations. Michael grew up in the Kansas City area, so please don't hold that against him. He attended the University of Kansas, where he got his bachelor's, and then went on to Washburn School of Law, where he got his law degree. His family, Clem and Barb, out here in the audience, they moved to the Mason area back about 20 years ago, and I know my son-in-law, their son, and I think his brother, who's an identical twin, both played for Mason with Melinda Kelly's son. Michael's career started kind of maybe a little differently than the way it's ended up. He started out in criminal defense as a criminal defense attorney. And you think about that, Bob Huggins isn't helping us there at all. But then he worked his way on over into the compliance section for the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and the University of Richmond. And he also worked for 8.5 years as an investigator with the NCAA enforcement staff. So there are a lot of stories out there he's not going to be able to tell you, so I'm just going to share that in advance. Some things he'll share what he can, but there's a limit on it. Basically, about 2.5 years ago, he went to what he calls the other side. And he went to work for BSK College Sports Practice in Indianapolis. And he now represents colleges and universities on NCAA compliance, eligibility, and infraction matters, defending schools, student athletes, and coaches. Of interest is Michael is just one of 3 attorneys in his family. They only have 3 sons. Michael's an attorney, as you know. Then he has twin brothers, identical twin brothers, even though one of them is my son-in-law, until they both speak and I get their clothing squared away. I can't tell who's who. It's God's truth. It's unbelievable. But one of them, who is my son-in-law, actually serves as the assistant general counsel for the state of Ohio. And the other, Justin, is the assistant U.S. attorney working in Fort Wayne. So they've both done very well in the law practice, all kind of in different arenas. The family continues its strong ties to Kansas. Kind of hard to grow away from that, just like it is. If we move away and wherever we are, we're going to be thinking about our sports teams, our food. They're no different. They love their sports teams out there. There's a lot of bantering that takes place with the rest of us when we compete with them. And for a long time, I kind of had to bow my head in shame. I couldn't say, well, I just had to take it. But I don't have to anymore. We've got 3 teams that are leading in their respective leagues, and unheard of. So now I kind of walk high and get back with them. But the bottom line is, Michael, has a life outside of law also. He enjoys watching and playing sports, traveling, and spending time with family. And on my dad, he now has a new niece. Clem, Barb, Sue, and I have a new granddaughter. She's been in ICU since July 5th, but is doing quite well. And we're hopeful that within a couple days she'll be able to come home. And Michael's assured us he will be in charge of providing diapers for the entire time that she's in them. He's just not going to change them. Michael?
Thank you, Jack and Doug, for the invitation and the warm introduction. Good afternoon to you all. It's a pleasure to be with you. Usually when I do these kind of talks, I'm on a college campus and people are mad when I show up. I'm hoping we can be friends off the bat, even though I'm a Chiefs fan. But what Jack said is absolutely correct. I mean, my family and I, sports was a huge part of our daily lives. We played sports, my brothers and I, year-round growing up. I'll still dabble with some intramural sports or golf, things like that. And pretty much every weekend, fall, winter, and spring, you'll find us in front of the TV watching games, like I'm sure many of you do. And my love of sports, family's love of sports, is what I think really led me to the job I have today, even though it was kind of an unusual path to get there. I am an attorney by trade. On my dad's side of the family, his siblings, I think, with the exception of 1 or 2, are all attorneys. So from a young age, they kind of rubbed off on me in terms of my interest in the legal field. And I started off as a criminal defense lawyer, in large part because I had an amazing mentor in law school who was a prominent criminal defense and civil rights attorney in Topeka, Kansas, where I was going to law school. But realized a few years into that it really wasn't my passion, and my passion lied in sports. So I kind of had to start from scratch, so to speak, and network and meet people in the industry. And fortunately, I was able to make some connections. People did some favors for me, helped me along the way, and got me my start. So my focus nowadays is in the area of NCAA compliance. So these are the things that kind of go on behind the scenes of the games that you see on Saturday afternoons. My job before this job was as an NCAA investigator. So in Indianapolis, there's the NCAA headquarters, and it's a staff of about 500 people, and there's a group within that office of about 50 or 60 people that are responsible for doing the investigations. So in the context of college sports, we are the police and the prosecutor, to use kind of a parallel to the legal world. I did that work for about 8.5 years. So I would go on campus, several times a month and do interviews, interview coaches, interview student athletes, gather and review documents, and then we would more or less prosecute those cases where there were violations and take them to trial, so to speak, before an NCAA committee. And through that work, I was fortunate enough to meet a couple men that were instrumental in my transition. Some of these names you may know. Mike Glazier, who is the founder of our practice, recently retired, basically built the industry that I'm in now, the college sports compliance consulting industry. He and Mike Slide, the now deceased former commissioner of the Southeastern Conference, formed the practice in the early 90s and built it basically from the ground up. And I am privileged to be part of the group that he left behind. And we take that responsibility seriously because the group that I worked for, I'm a small part of, but it is what we would consider to be the national leader in this industry. And what we do is we represent universities primarily. So when they get in hot water with the NCAA, they call us and we help them out. And we defend them in the investigation and in the hearing or the trial before the NCAA. So when I was giving Jack a little rundown of kind of what I do now, I went to the other side of the table, so to speak. So I was prosecuting cases for 8.5 years, and now I'm defending those cases. So I go up against my former colleagues every day, and sometimes they kind of look at me with a little bit of a grin because they've heard me in meetings, beat my fist on the table about these corrupt schools in that area, and 3 years later, saying how great they are. So I kind of have to thread that needle from time to time, and as you can imagine, it can be tricky. But I believe in this work. I have a criminal defense background. I believe in everyone's right to a defense. And really what we do is help. I would like to think we help the NCAA do their jobs better. They might not always see it that way. But I really do think at the end of the day, that's what our role is. We're there to defend them, but we're also there to help make sure that full information is gathered and that the truth is uncovered. And there's some advocacy along the way. In the time that I've been in college sports, which is about 13 years now, it is not a long period of time, historically, but there has been a ton of transition in the industry in terms of how it's regulated. The games that you see on TV are pretty similar. There's been some changes to some of the health and safety protocols, concussions, things like that, for good reason. But by and large, the games that you watch are the games that you were watching 15, 20 years ago. But what goes into putting on those games and the rules that these schools follow are very different in some respects. And we like to think of ourselves as somewhat experts in the field, but there are days where I don't know what the hell to tell my clients because there's a lot of uncertainty in the industry, particularly with some of the state laws that are going into effect, court decisions. I'm sure you've seen some of that in the headlines. And schools now are in this kind of awkward position where they want to be aggressive and recruit and use money more aggressively in administering their programs, but at the same time they're nervous about it and they want to know what the limits are. And oftentimes there's not a lot of clarity from the NCAA on what those limits are, so we try to help them navigate that. But I think really what I've noticed in the past, particularly in the past 6 or 7 years, is college sports are becoming more and more professionalized in terms of the money that's at play. And we probably all have different views on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that is the trend line. Things are becoming more and more professionalized. I think some of the deregulation that's gone on, particularly freeing up student athletes to monetize their name, image, and likeness are good things and probably long overdue. When you consider the value that these young athletes bring to their schools, the impact they have on communities, social media, they should be able to do that. I think we can probably all agree that. There was probably a part of us that all, at one point or another, maybe viewed that, but didn't really want to admit it. And I think folks in the industry, administrators, the NCAA, were kind of slow to come around to that. I think this trend of more professionalized aspect of collegiate sports is going to continue. I guess we'll wait and see on whether the fan likes that or not. I tend to think they're not going to really care too much because, again, the games on Saturday afternoons are pretty similar to the games that were going on decades ago. But that's really kind of what my job is in a nutshell, is to help these schools, help these athletes kind of navigate the NCAA waters, so to speak. And it's fun, it's challenging, it's frustrating at times. I have a legal background, but I don't do real law, which is kind of if there's any attorneys in the room, the real law grind of things kind of got to me. So I'm quite happy with where I'm at now and get to do something that I'm truly passionate about and like to speak about from time to time. Sports is something that people are very passionate about. They have questions about. They like to banter back and forth, talk a little trash, what have you. So that's really what I had planned to cover, was just a little bit of my background. And I thought, and we might kick around some questions that you all might have about what's going on or kind of what you think might be coming. Yes, ma'am.
So I agree with you that the name, image, and likeness changes are well overdue. But I was kind of thinking from kind of a social justice lens. So individuals that were penalized for certain activities pre-decision, has there been any action to go back and rectify some of those wrongs?
Well,
Mike, repeat the question.
so the question was, historically speaking, it was impermissible, it was illegal, so to speak, in the NCAA world for an athlete to receive certain benefits that are now permissible today. And what, if anything, is being done for those former athletes to kind of make them whole? Or is there going to be any kind of recognition and compensation for that? In terms of an NCAA rule, no. But that is something I think that is being considered, and maybe even in the pipeline of the court systems. So I believe there is litigation that's pending that is designed to do just that. Basically, redress those prior issues and provide these athletes some compensation for what they weren't getting historically. I don't have a ton of insight as to the likelihood of success there, or really where that's at beyond the fact that it's a very important lawsuit.
Work that the follow was any advocacy work that we could or should be doing to help speed up?
Could you repeat your question?
Yeah, sure. The question was whether there was any advocacy work that you all could be doing. That's a good question. I don't know. Again, my job is primarily focused on defending the schools. I don't sue the NCAA. I don't sue the schools. They're my clients. But I'm sure there are. I'm sure that if you asked around, you might be able to find a way to do that. I think a lot of this kind of has a grassroots effort type dynamic to it. Again, I wish I had a little bit more insight into exactly these particular lawsuits, but typically these are being pursued by prominent plaintiffs' attorneys. There's some prominent ones nationwide that have basically taken a bat to the NCAA over the past decade or so and been successful. And those are the types of folks that are pursuing the litigation that I'm talking about. Yes, sir.
So do you see that as we go forward, that we really end up with 25 or 30 schools as D1? I mean, the money's not going to be competitive for everybody. I mean, look at the young man who was going to go to Florida and they were promising multi-millions, and then they couldn't come up with the money, so he went somewhere else. I mean, you're gonna end up with, there's only so many schools that are gonna be able to raise that kind of money in their NIL funds to pay for people to play. So, I mean, do we end up with 25 or 30 schools that are really competitive as we go forward? And then, second question, what's being done for the athletes? Okay, so this young man coming out of high school is gonna get multi-millions to prepare him for dealing with these funds, make sure he's paying taxes, doing all those things, but also that he's investing for his future and not, I mean, if I'm 17 or 18 years old, somebody drops $5 million in my lap, I can guarantee you I was not going to be a very good steward of it. So what's being done for the athlete to ensure that they're taking care of themselves for the future, but also, I guess, back to the first part, we end up with 25 or 30 schools, and that's what that's where this ends up.
Did everyone hear that?
No.
No? So it was a two-part question. The first part was, with the way things are trending with the kind of consolidation of resources we're going to end up with 25 or 30 kind of power schools. And then second, what's being done in terms of guidance and assistance to these athletes that are now being offered and provided significant sums of money to ensure that they're using it correctly, that they're paying taxes, all those sorts of things. To the second question, one of the things that has been deregulated in addition to the athletes being able to receive the money is they can hire an agent, they can hire a tax advisor, they can hire a lawyer. So the young men and the young women who are making that kind of significant money, it's been my experience that they're typically represented by major sports and entertainment agencies, well-known law firms, tax advisors, etc., so that those kind of things are taken care of. I believe there's also on-campus counseling and guidance and mentorship that the individual schools are providing. So they contract with companies that are now kind of flowing into the NIL space, and these companies provide that type of education and can make references or referrals to a law firm, to a tax advisor, to whomever, if the athlete needs those services. So there is a recognition of that need. But at the same time, particularly once you hit 18, you're an adult. So you have a personal responsibility as well to seek that out. To your first question, I told you earlier that I think college sports will become more and more professionalized. I think that's going to continue. I don't think the money is going to slow down in any material way in the short term. These schools that are moving conferences are largely being driven by the media rights deals, the TV money that these conferences can gain. I think at some point you hit a critical mass where the conference isn't financially viable to add another school because no one wants their per school share to go down. I do think, though, right now NIL is largely being funded by the supporters of the school, by the boosters of the school. And NIL has only been active for about 2 years, but you already see stories out there, we hear anecdotally that there is already booster fatigue. So if you're a booster and you're being asked to help pay for a new weight room or renovate a football stadium, you've got a little side pot of money that you're prepared to invest to that effort. At a certain point, you're going to be like, I'm tapped out. And the schools aren't stopping their requests for these types of money for their facilities and whatnot. And then they're being hit up on the left side by an NIL entity saying, we need X amount of money for our recruiting budget. So I think you'll probably see a little bit of a reset with that. Boosters just saying, there's no more money for me to give here. I've got, I'm tapped out. They'll have to pursue, other ways of funding those types of initiatives. Yes, sir.
Speaking of donor fatigue, I believe IRS has come out and said that contributions to a NEO fund are not tax deductible. That's going to be really, really devastating, I think, to a lot of people. I've worked with the Neal Fund, the local college here, asking students to help us market drug education videos. It was absolutely a daunting experience, and before we could even get to the students, we had to put money up, and 30% of what we wanted to go to the students to help us was taken off the top. Who got that 30%? Is there going to be uniformity across the country in terms of how these Neal funds are treated?
That's a great question, and the Neal Fund, this is an NIL collective, so basically what we're talking about is an organization that pools money from individual boosters and kind of combines it into a pot that they then distribute to student athletes as part of their NIL deals. Some collectives have chosen to incorporate as a 501c3. Some of them didn't do that. Not all of them have tried to incorporate as a nonprofit. Recently, there was, I believe it was a memo or some type of written guidance from the IRS saying they're going to take a closer look on the NIL collectives that chose to incorporate as a nonprofit because they didn't think that they met the criteria as a nonprofit. So you might see a reset there. In terms of the money they're taking off the top, again, it's kind of a mixed bag on the collectives that do that and those that don't. But I agree, it is somewhat eyebrow raising that a donor or donors donate sums of money to a collective with the intention that it go to, legitimate NIL activity, and then the organization itself is taking a third for their own business purposes. Not all of them do that, but some of them do. And it is, again, it's very new. It's only 2 years old, so I think you'll see ebbs and flows and shifts and changes in terms of how this stuff is carried out. Yes, sir.
Do you see a potential for a Title IX lawsuit coming out of this thing? Because, you start to look at quarterback from Alabama gets $2 million in NIL money, and the synchronized swimmer from Alabama gets $30,000. I mean, there seems to be a potential risk for a fairness thing coming out from that standpoint, and I don't know if there's been any discussion about that or not. I mean, everybody's looking for ways to sue people, so
so the question was, what are the kind of the Title IX implications to all of this stuff? I know just enough Title IX to be dangerous, so I don't want to go too far down that road, but I was actually recently at a conference of people in my industry, and that very question was raised. And the people who were on the panel seemed to think that there would be some type of Title IX aspect to these activities, particularly where the institution that's tied to the collective is somehow involved in some way in orchestrating where the money goes and how much. So that, again, that's not my area of expertise, so don't take that to the bank. But I think in general, your question is spot on, that I think you'll see that be an aspect of some of this in the future. I paid all my attention to this side of the room here, so I'm going to go over here. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. A question. Recently, Wall Street Journal had an article about the University of Georgia football players and how they're protecting them to the nth degree from driving, criminal activity, you name it, rape, whatever is going on. What they're doing is they are paying, getting the politicians involved, plus the attorneys, plus every bit of influence. And the question is, how long can that go on, even though the team is winning? But what's the long-term effect of this, plus all this money going into the system?
Yeah. Appreciate the question. I respect the question. When it comes to specific schools like that, I tend to kind of shy away from speaking on those topics. One, it's not really my area. I deal with NCAA compliance and not criminal law anymore. Those kind of things, I think you read them, you're troubled by them, just as anyone would be. But beyond that, I get a little nervous about commenting too far. Apologies. Yep. In the back.
Simple question. Are you working mostly in reaction to a suit, or are you hired prevent?
Great question. So the question was whether I'm hired kind of in response to an inquiry or preventatively. The The answer is both. So an aspect of our business is doing compliance reviews, so preventative maintenance, basically, where we go in and evaluate a university's compliance program in all aspects of it, particularly the key areas, recruiting, extra benefits, those sorts of things. But the bulk of our business is in response to some school getting a call from the NCAA saying, hey, you have a problem. So a little bit of both, but I would say the lion's share comes from investigations. Yes, sir.
For about 40 or 50 years, NCAA pretty much considered the end-all be-all of collegiate sports. Considering how many changes and some of the ones you addressed at the beginning there, do you see the NCAA still being in its current form in 10 years or a decade, or do you see that pretty much being given to the conferences? Will the NCAA even be around in 10 years?
The question is, when will the NCAA be around, for the foreseeable future? My answer to that is yes. The schools, this is probably something I should have mentioned earlier, the NCAA is an association of 1,100 some odd schools. They are the NCAA. They delegate the responsibility for administering the rules and the championships to that group of 500 people that work in Indianapolis. But the schools and the presidents they are the NCAA. So if you think about it in terms of running an athletic association or a league, you're going to want some competitive balance. You're going to need some entity to administer and kind of regulate that. So if it's not the NCAA as the initials, it would be something else. And I think given the control and the influence that the major schools have on the NCAA governance structure, to me it makes sense to keep it within the confines of the NCAA and then make the rules what you want them to be. The trick there is, all these schools gripe about the rules, but they hold the keys to them. They write the rules, they adopt the rules, they ask the NCAA staff to carry out the rules. So, they hold the key there to run the whole show. So, my personal view is, and I used to work there, and it seemed like every couple of years there was some doom and gloom story out there that, they're going to shut down the NCAA and the schools, like the major schools are going to take it and make it their own thing. But I just don't think it's necessary. I just don't think it's realistic in the short term anyway.
Sorry, just a comment on that, because I feel like it's almost like lift off, right? Do you bring another entity that can bring money and bring more schools? They create your own, another NCAA, and then you'll have competition.
Yeah. I'm looking at my clock, I'm at 1:22. Am I good?
One more question.
One more question. Okay.
So you talked about name, image, likeness, and some schools having deeper pockets than others. It reminds me a little bit of the situation we have in Major League Baseball. Small market teams versus large market teams. Whereas the NFL has a salary cap, which makes it for a more level playing field. Do we ever see in the future some sort of salary cap so that we have a more level playing field between the large market schools and the small market, Miami University schools?
Did anyone hear the question?
And would it lead to a union?
So the nugget in there is that in the professional ranks, these folks are employees. Major League Baseball players, NFL football players are employees. College athletes are not employees of the school, at least not yet. There's some movement afoot to try to change that. There's, I think, litigation out in California to try to change that. We've seen various other government entities, the NLRB, take positions on that. So it's certainly an open question, meaning what is a student athlete? Are they an employee of the school? Are they not? Are they something else? So I would have a hard time foreseeing any type of regulation on what a student athlete can make if they're not deemed an employee. And even if they were, to avoid antitrust issues, you need to involve the student athletes in that process. Like in Major League Baseball, there's a union in football, there's a union, they collectively bargain with the teams, the league, on their salary and things like that. So maybe one of these days, but for right now, I don't foresee that.
Dipping into King Steve's and presenting the Rotary coin, which has, Brad's question, has a beautiful picture of the Cincinnati skyline. So share this with all of your Kansas friends. And then the four-way test on the back. In addition to presenting you this coin, we'll be making a donation in your name to Rotary International's End Polio Now campaign, which, if you're not aware of, we've been in a multi-year effort to try to end polio in this world, and we're just this close. And so the contribution in your name will help us get even closer. So thank you again. Let's give them another big round of applause. All right, our committee meetings today are the board meeting. Immediately following, in the president's room, you go down the steps and to your right. And don't forget to make your RSVP for next week's meeting. Do it by tomorrow. And next week's meeting features, as Michael indicated, Paycor founder Bob Kaufman. As our, I don't think I can lift it up, as our banner here for the Rotary year says, go out and create hope in this world. Meeting adjourned.